The Alpha King just crowned another woman in front of the entire realm, while his true mate, the rightful Luna Queen, stands in the shadows carrying his secret heir. Tonight, Elena Varelli will either break or become something far more dangerous than a betrayed queen. Stay until the end to see how a woman they called Baron unleashes a storm that rewrites an empire. Drop a like and tell me what city you're watching from. The coronation hall reeked of roses and lies. Elena stood at the back of the throne room, half hidden behind a marble column, watching Ronan place the Luna crown on another woman's head. The gold circlet caught the torchlight, throwing fractured shadows across Leora's pale face. Leora, who smiled like she'd won a war without ever lifting a blade. The crowd roared. Thousands of wolves from every corner of the kingdom, their voices shaking the vaulted ceiling. They chanted Leora's name. They chanted for the heir she carried, Ronan's heir, or so everyone believed. Elena's hand drifted to her own stomach. Beneath the heavy folds of her cloak, barely a swell. 12 weeks. Maybe 13. She'd stopped counting after the palace physician told Ronan she was barren. After Ronan believed him. She should have left then. Should have run the moment she saw the doubt creep into his eyes. But she'd stayed foolish and hopeful, thinking the bond they shared, the sacred mate bond that tied Alpha to Luna, soul to soul, would be enough. It wasn't. By the power vested in me as Alpha King, Ronan's voice boomed across the hall, deep and commanding, I declare Leora Ashford the Luna Queen of the Northern Territories, mother of my heir, my chosen mate. Chosen. The word was a knife between Elena's ribs. The crowd erupted again. Nobles in silk and fur pressed forward, bowing, pledging loyalty. Servants rushed to pour wine. Musicians struck up a triumphal march. And Ronan stood tall and unshaken, his hand resting on Leora's shoulder like she was the only woman in the world. Elena's wolf snarled inside her chest, clawing at the edges of her control. The bond between them had frayed over the past months, stretched thin by Ronan's distance and Leora's whispers. But it hadn't broken. Not completely. She could still feel him, faint and cold, like an echo in a frozen cave. Did he feel her? Did he feel the way her heart was tearing itself apart? A hand touched her elbow. She flinched, spinning to find Kael, Ronan's head of security and one of the few wolves in the palace who still met her eyes. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. His face was hard, scarred from decades of battle, but his voice held something close to pity. I'm still his mate. Elena's voice came out steadier than she expected. Legally, spiritually, the bond hasn't been severed. Yet. Kael glanced toward the dais where Ronan was accepting congratulations from the High Council. They're planning the ritual for tonight. Once the moon rises, it's done. You'll be nothing. Nothing. She'd been nothing for months. Ever since Leora arrived at court, glowing and demure, carrying what everyone said was impossible, a child from the king. Ronan's advisors had called it a miracle, a sign from the moon goddess herself. Elena had called it what it was, a trap. But no one listened to a barren queen. Tell me something, Kael. She kept her eyes on Ronan. Do you believe it? That Leora's child is his? Kael didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was careful. I believe the king wants it to be true. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. Elena turned to leave, pulling her hood up to shadow her face. She'd seen enough. The coronation, the cheers, the way Ronan looked at Leora like she'd saved him from some terrible fate. It was all theater. A performance for a kingdom that needed an heir, needed stability, needed anything but the truth. Elena. She stopped. Kael stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. If you're planning something, I'm not. Good. Because if you run, they'll hunt you, and if you stay... He hesitated. There's nothing left for you here. She knew that. She'd known it for weeks. Go home, Kael said. Stay in your chambers. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Home. As if she had one anymore. Elena nodded once and walked away, her boots silent on the polished stone. She moved through the palace like a ghost, invisible to the servants rushing past with trays of food and wine. No one looked at her. No one bowed. She was already forgotten. Her chambers were in the east wing, far from Ronan's quarters. They'd stopped sharing a bed 2 months ago. He'd said it was temporary, that he needed space to think. She'd known better. The door to her room was ajar. Elena froze, every instinct screaming. She pushed it open slowly. Inside, the room had been stripped. Her clothes, her books, the few personal belongings she'd brought from her home territory, gone. Even the curtains had been taken down, leaving the windows bare and cold. On the bed sat a single wooden box. She crossed the room and opened it. Inside was a folded letter, sealed with the royal crest, and a small vial of silver liquid. Wolfsbane extract. Enough to dull her wolf, make her weak and human for a few hours. She unfolded the letter. Elena, by order of the High Council and the will of the Alpha King, your title as Luna Queen is hereby revoked. You are to vacate the palace by dawn. Any attempt to contest this decision will be considered an act of treason. The vial is a courtesy. It will make the bond-breaking ritual less painful for you. We suggest you take it. High Chancellor Oren. No signature from Ronan. Not even a line. Elena read it twice, then set it down carefully. Her hands didn't shake, her breathing stayed even. She felt nothing. A strange, hollow calm that settled over her like snow. She picked up the vial, held it to the light. The liquid inside shimmered, toxic and beautiful. Then she threw it against the wall. Glass shattered. Wolfsbane splattered across the stone, hissing faintly where it touched the mortar. The smell was sharp, bitter, wrong. Elena turned and walked to the window. Outside, the palace grounds stretched toward the forest, dark and endless under the rising moon. She could see the outer gates, the guards stationed along the walls. They'd let her leave. She was no threat anymore, except she was. Her hand moved to her stomach again. The life growing inside her was strong, stronger than it should be at this stage. She could feel it, a steady pulse of power that didn't belong to her alone. This child was Alpha-born, royal blood, the true heir. And Ronan didn't know. A bitter smile touched her lips. Let him crown his false queen. Let him sever the bond and pretend Leora's child would save the kingdom. In a few months, when the truth came out, when Leora's bastard was born without the alpha mark, without the strength or the claim, Ronan would realize what he'd done. But by then, Elena would be gone. She pulled a leather satchel from beneath the bed, one of the few things they'd missed, and began packing. A change of clothes, a hunting knife, the small pouch of gold coins she'd been hiding since the whispers started. Not much, but enough to disappear. The bond-breaking ritual was set for midnight. She had 3 hours. The palace corridors twisted like a labyrinth, each turn darker than the last. Elena knew these halls better than anyone. She'd walked them for 3 years as Luna Queen, memorized every shortcut, every servant's passage, every shadow deep enough to hide in. Tonight, she used all of it. The celebration had spread through the main wings like wildfire. Everywhere she went, she heard laughter, music, the clink of glasses raised in toast. To Leora, to the heir, to the future of the Northern Territories. No one toasted the queen they were erasing. Elena slipped past a cluster of drunk nobles stumbling through the portrait gallery. One of them, Lord Vane, she thought, though she didn't care enough to check, was telling a joke about barren wolves and broken bloodlines. The others howled with laughter. She kept walking. In the servants' wing, the atmosphere was different, quieter. The staff moved with purpose, carrying trays, emptying chamber pots, whispering among themselves. A few glanced at Elena as she passed. Most looked away quickly, uncomfortable. One didn't. "My lady." The voice was soft, uncertain. A young maid, barely 16, with red hair and freckles. Her name was Mira. She'd been assigned to Elena's chambers when she first arrived at the palace. Elena stopped. "You shouldn't talk to me." "I know." Mira twisted her apron between her hands. I wanted to say I'm sorry about everything." "Don't be. You didn't do anything." Still, the girl's eyes were bright with tears. "It's not right. What they're doing to you, everyone knows it. Knowing and doing are different things." Mira nodded, biting her lip. Then she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Here, take this." Elena unwrapped it. Inside was a loaf of bread, a chunk of hard cheese, and a handful of dried berries. Travel food. You're leaving, aren't you? Mira whispered. Tonight. Elena should have lied, should have protected the girl from any involvement. But something in Mira's face, the earnestness, the stubborn kindness, stopped her. Yes. Good. Mira wiped her eyes quickly. You deserve better than this place. Better than him. Elena's throat tightened. She folded the food back into the cloth and tucked it into her satchel. Thank you. Be safe, my lady. I'm not a lady anymore. You'll always be my queen. Before Elena could respond, Mira turned and hurried away, disappearing into the maze of corridors. Elena stood alone for a moment, the weight of the girl's words settling over her like a cloak. Then she kept moving. The stables were on the eastern edge of the palace grounds, tucked against the outer wall where the forest pressed close. Elena had always loved the smell, hay and leather and the warm musk of horses. It reminded her of home, of the small territory where she'd grown up before Ronan came for her, back when she still believed in fairy tales. The stable master was gone, probably drunk with the rest of them. Only a few horses remained, most of the stalls empty. Elena moved down the row, looking for something fast and sturdy. She found her in the last stall, a gray mare with intelligent eyes and a coat that shimmered like smoke. The horse lifted her head as Elena approached, nostrils flaring. Hey, girl. Elena held out her hand, letting the mare catch her scent. Want to get out of here? The horse snorted softly, as if considering. Elena opened the stall and let her out. Someone had already saddled her, probably one of the nobles who'd ridden in for the ceremony and abandoned their mount when the wine started flowing. Lucky for Elena. She was tightening the girth when she heard footsteps behind her. Going somewhere? Elena spun, hand going to the knife at her belt. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Not a guard, not a noble. A woman, middle-aged, dressed in the plain robes of a palace healer. Elena recognized her immediately. Marin, one of the senior physicians who worked in the medical wing. What do you want? Elena's voice was low, dangerous. Marin held up her hands, showing she was unarmed. Relax, I'm not here to stop you. Then why are you here? To give you this. Marin pulled a small leather pouch from her robes and tossed it to Elena. Elena caught it one-handed. Inside were dried herbs, carefully bundled. She recognized some of them. Ginger root for nausea, raspberry leaf for strengthening the womb, nettle for iron. Pregnancy herbs. You knew, Elena said slowly. I've been a healer for 30 years. You think I can't spot a pregnant wolf when I see one? Marin's expression was unreadable. I knew the day you came to me complaining about fatigue and dizziness, long before the high physician declared you barren. Why didn't you say anything? Because I'm not a fool, Marin crossed her arms. The king wanted you gone, the council wanted you gone. Even if I'd told them the truth, they wouldn't have believed me. Or worse, they would have believed me and taken the child. Elena's hand moved protectively to her stomach. How far along do you think I am? 14 weeks, maybe 15? Alpha pregnancies move fast. You've got 4 months at most before that baby comes. Marin's eyes were sharp, assessing. Where will you go? Somewhere they won't find me. Good luck with that. Ronan's trackers are the best in 5 territories. Marin paused. But if you're smart, you'll head south, cross into human lands, mask your scent with ash and river water. Stay away from wolf territories until after the birth. Why are you helping me? Marin's expression softened, just slightly. Because I took an oath to protect life. And because I've seen enough women destroyed by powerful men who couldn't see past their own pride. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. That child you're carrying? It's strong. Stronger than any I've felt in years. Whatever happens, Elena, keep it safe. Then she was gone, melting back into the shadows like she'd never been there at all. Elena stood holding the pouch of herbs, her mind racing. 14 weeks. 4 months. The timeline was tighter than she'd thought. She needed to move. Now. She swung up into the saddle, settling the satchel across her shoulders. The mare shifted beneath her, eager to run. Let's go, Elena whispered. They moved through the stable yard at a walk, quiet and careful. The outer gate was manned by a single guard, a young wolf Elena didn't recognize, probably fresh from one of the outer packs. He looked up as she approached, his hand moving to his sword. Halt! No one's supposed to leave without— I'm leaving. Elena's voice was flat, final. You can let me through, or you can try to stop me. Your choice. The guard hesitated, clearly torn between duty and self-preservation. He was young, inexperienced. He'd probably never faced a Luna before, even a disgraced one. Elena let her wolf rise to the surface, just enough that her eyes flashed gold in the torchlight, just enough that the scent of alpha power rolled off her in waves. The guard took a step back. Smart boy, Elena said, and rode through the gate. The forest swallowed her whole. Within minutes, the palace lights disappeared behind a wall of trees. The path was narrow and treacherous, roots and rocks hidden beneath a layer of dead leaves. Elena let the mare pick her way carefully, trusting the horse's instincts more than her own in the darkness. The bond hummed faintly at the back of her mind, a thin thread still connecting her to Ronan. She could feel him, distant, distracted, wrapped up in his false coronation. He hadn't noticed her leaving yet. He would. Soon. Elena pushed the mare faster, urgency driving her forward. The forest grew thicker, wilder. This was the boundary territory, the no-man's land between the palace grounds and the outer regions. Few wolves came here. It was considered bad luck, haunted by the ghosts of old wars. Perfect. She rode for hours, until her thighs ached and her back screamed in protest. The moon climbed higher, full and bright, casting silver shadows through the canopy. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, then another. The sound made her mare nervous, ears flicking back and forth. Easy, Elena murmured, stroking the horse's neck. We're almost— The bond snapped. It happened so suddenly that Elena gasped, nearly falling from the saddle. Pain exploded through her chest, white-hot and all-consuming. It felt like someone had reached into her ribcage and torn out her heart. The mare screamed and reared. Elena held on by pure instinct, her vision swimming. The bond that had connected her to Ronan since the moment they met, the sacred tie that marked them as true mates, shredded like paper, unraveling faster than thought. She felt him for one last second, confusion, surprise, something that might have been regret. Then nothing. The emptiness was crushing, like falling into an abyss with no bottom. Like drowning in silence so absolute it became its own kind of scream. Elena slid off the horse and hit the ground hard. Snow soaked through her cloak, freezing against her skin. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world tilted and spun, and all she could feel was the absence where Ronan used to be. The ritual was complete. High Chancellor Oren had performed the severing. Ronan had allowed it. She was free. She was alone. Elena pressed her face into the snow and screamed. Not a human scream, a wolf's howl, raw and primal, full of rage and grief and something too big to name. It tore from her throat, echoing through the forest, sending birds scattering from the trees. When it finally faded, she was shaking. Her hands were numb. Her wolf thrashed inside her chest, wounded and furious, looking for something to tear apart. But there was nothing, just snow and trees and the endless, suffocating quiet. Elena forced herself to her feet. The mare had bolted, crashing away through the underbrush. She could hear it in the distance, panicked and alone. She stumbled after it, each step a battle. The bond breaking had drained her in ways she hadn't expected. Her legs felt like water. Her vision blurred at the edges. But she kept moving, because stopping meant dying. And she had too much to do before she could afford to die. She found the mare half a mile away, tangled in a thicket of thorns. The horse was wild-eyed and bleeding from a dozen small cuts, but alive. Shh, Elena whispered, approaching slowly. It's okay. We're okay. The mare whinnied, stamping nervously. Elena reached out, letting her scent wash over the animal. Calm, steady, safe. Slowly, the horse settled. Elena freed her from the thorns, checking each cut carefully. Nothing serious. They'd both survive. She climbed back into the saddle, every muscle protesting. The emptiness where the bond had been was still there, a hollow ache that wouldn't fade. But beneath it, something else was growing. Not grief, not anymore. Rage. Cold, crystalline, perfect rage. Ronan had thrown her away, had believed lies and crowned a pretender, had severed their bond without even the courtesy of facing her. Fine. If he wanted her gone, she'd be gone. But someday, when the truth came out, when his false kingdom crumbled and he realized what he'd lost, she'd make sure he remembered exactly who Elena Virelli was. The rightful Luna Queen, the mother of the true heir, the woman who refused to break Chout. Elena rode south for 3 days straight. She avoided the main roads, sticking to game trails and frozen streams where her scent would wash away. She stopped only when the mare could go no farther, sleeping in brief, fitful bursts under the cover of fallen trees or rocky overhangs. The pregnancy made everything harder. She was tired constantly, her body demanding rest even when her mind screamed to keep moving. The nausea came in waves, forcing her to stop and retch into the snow. The herbs Marin had given her helped, but only barely. On the 4th day, she crossed into human territory. The change was subtle at first. The trees grew straighter, more orderly. The underbrush thinned. Then she saw the markers, wooden posts driven into the ground at regular intervals, carved with symbols that meant nothing to wolves but everything to humans. Property lines, borders, civilization. Elena's wolf recoiled instinctively. Human lands were dangerous for wolves, especially lone females. There were hunters, trappers, people who'd kill a shifter for the bounty without asking questions. But it was also the last place Ronan's trackers would look. She found a stream and dismounted, leading the mare to drink. While the horse rested, Elena stripped down to her underclothes despite the cold and waded into the water. It was freezing, so cold it burned, but she forced herself to stay under. She scrubbed at her skin with handfuls of sand and ash from a dead fire she'd found upstream, masking her scent until she smelled like nothing at all. When she climbed out, her lips were blue and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. But she smelled human, ordinary, forgettable, good enough. She dressed quickly, layering on every piece of clothing she had. The satchel felt lighter than it should. She was running out of food, out of coin, out of options. But she was still moving, still ahead of the hunters. That had to count for something. The town appeared at sunset. It was small, barely more than a crossroads. A handful of buildings clustered around a central square, smoke rising from chimneys, the smell of cooking meat drifting on the wind. Elena's stomach growled painfully. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten anything more substantial than dried berries and stale bread. She led the mare down the main street, drawing curious glances from the few people still outside. A woman hanging laundry, an old man smoking a pipe on his porch, a pair of children chasing a dog through the mud. Normal. Human. Safe. Elena found a stable at the edge of town and paid the owner, a weathered man with kind eyes, to board the mare for the night. He gave her directions to the boarding house, and she walked the last few blocks alone. The boarding house was a narrow 3-story building with peeling paint and crooked shutters. A faded sign above the door read, "Mrs. Halloway's Rooms." Inside it smelled like cabbage and old wood. A heavy-set woman stood behind a scarred wooden counter, squinting at a ledger. "Help you?" She didn't look up. "I need a room." Elena's voice was hoarse from disuse. "Long-term, if you have it." "How long?" 4 months, maybe 5. The woman finally looked up, her eyes sharp and assessing. She took in Elena's appearance, the worn cloak, the bruised shadows under her eyes, the way she held herself like someone braced for a blow. "You in trouble, girl?" Elena met her gaze steadily. "No more than anyone else." Mrs. Halloway snorted. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then the woman shrugged and turned the ledger around. $2 a week, paid in advance, no men in the rooms, no noise after dark. You cause trouble, you're out. Understood? Understood. Elena counted out 8 silver coins, 4 weeks' rent. It left her with almost nothing, but she'd figure that out later. Mrs. Halloway handed her a key. "3rd floor, room 12. Breakfast is at dawn, dinner at dusk. Miss either meal? You don't eat." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. You've got the look of someone running from something that catches up with people eventually." Elena took the key and climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. By the time she reached the 3rd floor, she was exhausted, her legs trembling. Room 12 was barely bigger than a closet. A narrow bed, a washstand, a single window overlooking the street. But it was warm, and it was hers. Elena locked the door, dropped her satchel, and collapsed onto the bed. For the first time in days, she let herself cry. Not for Ronan, not for the bond, for herself. For the woman she'd been, naive enough to believe love and loyalty mattered, foolish enough to think she'd be safe. She cried until there was nothing left. Then she wiped her face, placed a hand on her stomach, and made a promise. "No one will ever make us feel worthless again," she whispered. "No one will ever throw us away. We're going to survive this, and when we're strong enough, we're going to make them remember what they tried to erase." The baby kicked in response, small, fierce, alive. Elena smiled through the tears. Let Ronan have his false queen. Let him pretend his kingdom was stable. The real storm was coming. And her name was Elena Varelli. The boarding house became a cage Elena decorated with silence. She took the name Claire Voss, paid her rent on time, kept her head down, worked when she could, mending clothes for the tailor 2 streets over, scrubbing floors at the tavern, anything that didn't require questions or references or proof of a past that didn't exist. The other tenants ignored her, which was exactly what she wanted. Mrs. Halloway watched her with suspicious eyes but said nothing as long as the silver kept coming. 3 weeks passed, then 4. Elena's belly grew rounder, harder to hide beneath the loose dresses she'd bought from the second-hand shop. She stopped taking jobs that required bending or lifting, started sleeping with the knife under her pillow and the window cracked open, always ready to run. The nightmares came every night. Ronan's face, Leora's crown, the bond snapping like a breaking bone. She'd wake up gasping, her hand pressed to her chest where the emptiness lived, and have to remind herself she was still alive, still free. The baby kicked more now, strong, insistent movements that sometimes took her breath away. She'd press her hand to her stomach and feel the life inside her, fierce and demanding, already fighting for space. "You're going to be a terror," she whispered one night, alone in her room. "Just like your mother." A sharp kick in response, right against her ribs. Elena smiled despite herself. Winter deepened. Snow piled against the windows. The boarding house grew colder, the thin walls doing little to keep out the wind. Elena wrapped herself in every blanket she owned and rationed her coal, making each piece last as long as possible. Her coin was running low. Another week, maybe 2, and she'd be out. Then what? She tried not to think about it. Tried to focus on surviving one day at a time, but the worry gnawed at her, especially at night when sleep wouldn't come, and the future felt like a cliff she was walking toward in the dark. On a Tuesday morning in late January, everything changed. Elena was walking back from the market, her arms full of potatoes and turnips, cheap food that would last, when she caught the scent. Wolf. Not human, not animal. Wolf. She froze mid-step, her heart slamming against her ribs. The market square was crowded, full of people haggling over fish and bread, children running between the stalls. No one else seemed to notice anything wrong. But Elena's wolf was screaming. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd. There, at the edge of the square, half hidden behind a cart selling winter apples. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in traveling clothes that were too fine for a place like this. His eyes met hers. Recognition flashed across his face. Elena dropped the potatoes and ran. She didn't think, didn't plan, just bolted into the nearest alley, her boots slipping on the icy cobblestones. Behind her she heard shouting, the crash of the apple cart going over. He was following. Elena ran harder, her lungs burning, the baby a heavy weight that threw off her balance. The alley twisted and turned, spilling out into a narrow street lined with warehouses. She ducked between 2 buildings, pressing herself into the shadows, trying to control her breathing. Footsteps. Getting closer. "Elena?" The voice was male, calm, infuriatingly patient. "I know you're here. I can smell you." She didn't move, didn't breathe. "I'm not going to hurt you. The king just wants to talk." Like hell he did. Elena's hand went to the knife at her belt. It was small, meant for cutting rope and cleaning fish, but it was sharp. She'd used it on Gareth. She could use it again. The footsteps stopped. A shadow fell across the mouth of the alley. "Come on, Elena. Don't make this difficult. You can't run forever. You're pregnant, you're alone, and you're in human territory. How long do you think you'll last?" She stepped out of the shadows, knife in hand. The man wasn't Gareth. This one was older, leaner, with gray streaking his dark hair and scars crisscrossing his forearms. She recognized him. Marcus, one of Ronan's senior trackers. A man who'd never lost a target. "Stay back," Elena said, her voice low and dangerous. Marcus held up his hands, showing he was unarmed. "Easy. I told you, I'm not here to hurt you. Then what do you want?" "To bring you home." "I don't have a home." "The king disagrees." Marcus's expression was unreadable. "He knows about the child, Elena, knows it's his. He wants you back at the palace. Both of you, safe." Elena laughed, sharp and bitter. "Safe? Is that what he calls it? He severed our bond, Marcus. He crowned another woman. He threw me away like garbage. And now he wants me back because suddenly I'm convenient again? It's not like that. It's exactly like that." She tightened her grip on the knife. "Go back to Ronan. Tell him I'm dead. Tell him the child died with me. Tell him whatever you want. But I'm not going back." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You think you can raise an alpha heir alone? In the human world? They'll kill you both the moment they figure out what you are. Better dead than his prisoner." "Elena!" She lunged. Marcus was faster. He sidestepped, catching her wrist and twisting until the knife clattered to the ground. Elena snarled, her wolf surging to the surface, and drove her knee into his gut. He grunted but didn't let go. "Stop fighting me. I don't want to hurt you, but I will if you make me." Elena twisted, trying to break free. Her pregnancy made her slower, clumsier. Marcus used it against her, hooking his leg behind hers and bringing her down hard. She hit the ground with a cry, pain shooting through her shoulder. Marcus pinned her, his weight pressing her into the frozen dirt. "Listen to me," he said, his voice urgent. "Ronan made a mistake. He knows that now. Leora's child. It's not his. The physicians confirmed it. She tried to pass off another man's bastard as the heir. The entire court knows. She's been imprisoned. Ronan's looking for you because you're carrying the only legitimate heir he has." Elena went still. "You're lying." "I'm not. Leora's lover confessed everything. She planned it from the beginning. Seduce the king, claim the child was his, take the crown. It almost worked." And Ronan believed her. "Yes." Marcus's expression was grim. He believed her. He was a fool. But he's trying to fix it now. He wants you back, Elena. He wants his son. "What about what I want?" Marcus hesitated. "What do you want?" Elena stared up at him, breathing hard. What did she want? Revenge? Safety? To watch Ronan's kingdom burn while she stood in the ashes? All of it. None of it. "I want to be left alone," she said finally. "I want to raise my child in peace. I want Ronan to forget I ever existed." "That's not going to happen. You're carrying the heir to the Northern Territories. That makes you the most important person in the kingdom, whether you like it or not." "I didn't ask for that." "None of us ask for what we're born into." Marcus shifted his weight, still keeping her pinned but easing the pressure slightly. "Come back with me. Let the king make this right." "He can't make this right. He broke something that can't be fixed." "Maybe not. But your child deserves a chance, deserves to know who he is, where he comes from. You can hate Ronan all you want, but don't punish the boy for his father's mistakes." The words hit harder than Elena expected. She thought of her son, unborn, unnamed, already carrying the weight of a legacy he didn't choose. What kind of life could she give him here? Running, hiding, always looking over her shoulder? But going back meant facing Ronan, meant stepping back into a world that had tried to destroy her. Before she could answer, Marcus's head snapped up. His nostrils flared. "We're not alone," he said quietly. Elena smelled it a second later. More wolves. At least 3, maybe 4. Coming fast. Marcus released her and stood, his body tense. "Those aren't mine." "Then whose—" A figure dropped from the warehouse roof, landing between them with inhuman grace. A woman, blonde and brutal-looking, with a crossbow aimed at Marcus's chest. "Step away from her," the woman said. Marcus raised his hands. "Who are you?" "Someone who doesn't answer to your king." The woman's eyes flicked to Elena. "You, Elena Virelli?" Elena pushed herself up, her shoulder throbbing. "Who's asking?" "A friend. Or an enemy. Depends on what you say next." The woman kept the crossbow trained on Marcus. Word is Ronan Drax is hunting a pregnant Luna. Word is she's carrying the true heir and he wants her back to secure his throne. That you? Elena's mind raced. This wasn't one of Ronan's people. Wasn't palace guard or royal tracker. The accent was wrong, the stance too aggressive. This was someone from outside the kingdom, someone with their own agenda. What do you want? Elena asked carefully. To make you an offer. The woman smiled, sharp and cold. My employer is interested in destabilizing Ronan's rule. A missing heir, a disgraced Luna, a kingdom in chaos, that's valuable. We can protect you, keep you hidden until the child is born. After that, she shrugged. After that, we negotiate. Negotiate what? The boy's future, Ronan's downfall, a new order in the Northern Territories. The woman's smile widened. Interested? Marcus moved, fast as lightning. He grabbed for the crossbow, twisting it out of the woman's hands and slamming her into the wall. Elena, run! 2 more figures appeared at the mouth of the alley. Male, armed with silver blades. Mercenaries, Elena realized. Wolf hunters. The woman Marcus had pinned drove her elbow into his throat. He staggered back, choking, and she kicked him in the chest hard enough to crack ribs. Last chance, Luna, the woman said, advancing on Elena. Come with us, or we leave your body for the crows. Elena's wolf snarled. Power flooded her veins, the same wild electric energy she'd felt when she killed Gareth. It burned through her exhaustion, sharpening her senses to a razor's edge. She didn't think, just moved. Her claws extended, longer and sharper than they should be. She slashed at the woman, catching her across the face. Blood sprayed. The woman screamed and fell back. The 2 mercenaries rushed forward. Elena met them head-on, her movements fluid and deadly despite the pregnancy. She ducked under a blade, drove her claws into the first man's gut, tore them free in a spray of gore. The second man hesitated, clearly not expecting a pregnant woman to fight like a demon. It cost him his life. Elena ripped out his throat before he could raise his weapon. Behind her, Marcus had recovered. He grabbed the blonde woman by the hair and slammed her face into the cobblestones until she stopped moving. Silence fell over the alley. 3 bodies on the ground, blood pooling in the gaps between the stones. Elena stood in the center of it, breathing hard, her hands slick with blood. The power that had surged through her moments ago was fading, leaving her shaking and dizzy. What the hell was that? Marcus stared at her, shock written across his face. You shouldn't be that strong. Not pregnant. Not after a bond breaking. Elena looked at her hands. The claws were retracting, her skin returning to normal, but she could still feel it, that wild, dangerous power coiled inside her chest. I don't know, she whispered. Marcus moved closer, his expression wary. That wasn't normal wolf strength, Elena. That was something else, something... He trailed off, his eyes widening. It's the baby. It's making you stronger. That's impossible. Is it? Alpha children are powerful even in the womb. They share their strength with the mother, especially when she's in danger. But I've never seen it like this. He shook his head. Ronan needs to know about this. Ronan doesn't need to know anything. Elena. No. She stepped back, wiping the blood on her dress. I killed 3 people, Marcus. 3. And I'm going to kill anyone else who tries to take me back. Tell Ronan that. Tell him his heir is growing inside a woman who would rather die than see his face again. You don't mean that. I mean every word. Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. You can't stay here. Those mercenaries, someone hired them. If they found you, others will too. Then I'll keep moving. Where? You're running out of places to hide, running out of time. He gestured to her stomach. In a few months, that baby is coming, whether you're ready or not. You need somewhere safe, somewhere with healers, supplies, protection. I don't need Ronan's protection. Maybe not, but your son does. The words hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to tell Marcus to go to hell, that she'd figure it out on her own, that she didn't need anyone. But she was tired. So tired. And the baby was getting heavier, demanding more of her energy, her strength. She was barely surviving as it was. How was she supposed to deliver an alpha child alone? If I go back, she said slowly, I want terms. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Terms? I'm not his mate anymore. The bond is gone. I won't pretend otherwise. I go back as the mother of his heir, nothing more. No reconciliation, no forgiveness, just coexistence, until the child is born and old enough to survive without me. And then? Then I leave. For good. Marcus considered this. Ronan won't agree to that. Then Ronan doesn't get his heir. You'd keep the boy from his father? From his birthright? Elena's smile was sharp and cold. Watch me. They locked eyes. Marcus was the first to look away. I'll take your terms to the king, he said finally, but I can't promise he'll accept them. He's not himself lately. The situation with Lyora, the council questioning his judgment, half the kingdom thinking he's weak, it's broken something in him. Good, Elena said flatly. Now he knows how it feels. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but footsteps echoed at the end of the alley. More people coming. The fight had drawn attention. We need to move, Marcus said. Now, before the town guard shows up and starts asking questions. Elena glanced at the bodies one last time. 3 lives she'd taken without hesitation, without remorse. What was she becoming? She didn't have time to answer. Marcus grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the back of the alley where a narrow passage led between the warehouses. They ran. They made it to the edge of town before Elena collapsed. Her legs gave out without warning, sending her crashing to her knees in the snow. The adrenaline that had carried her through the fight was gone, leaving nothing but exhaustion and pain. Elena. Marcus crouched beside her. Can you stand? Give me a minute. We don't have a minute. Those mercenaries have friends. They'll be looking for us. Then leave me. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Take the message to Ronan and go. I'm not leaving you. Why not? I'm nothing to you. Nothing to him. Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentler than she expected. You're the mother of the future king. That makes you everything. Elena laughed bitterly. Funny. 3 months ago, I was barren and worthless. Now I'm everything. How quickly things change. Ronan was wrong about a lot of things. That doesn't fix what he broke. No, it doesn't. Marcus helped her to her feet, supporting her weight. But maybe it's a start. They walked to the edge of the forest where Marcus had left his horse, a massive black stallion that snorted and stamped when it caught Elena's scent. Easy, Shadow. Marcus stroked the horse's neck. She's a friend. Are we? Elena asked. Friends? Marcus didn't answer. He helped her into the saddle, then swung up behind her. Hold on! They rode hard into the forest, leaving the town and its bodies behind. Elena leaned back against Marcus's chest, too exhausted to care about pride or propriety. The baby shifted inside her, restless and uncomfortable. How far to the palace? She asked. 4 days, maybe 3, if we push. I don't know if I can make it. You will. Marcus's voice was certain. You're stronger than you think, stronger than any Luna I've ever met. Elena closed her eyes. She didn't feel strong. She felt broken and scared and so tired she could barely think. But the baby kicked again, sharp and insistent, a reminder that she wasn't alone, wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. Marcus? Yeah? If Ronan refuses my terms, if he tries to keep me prisoner or take my son, he won't. If he does, Elena continued, her voice hard, I'll kill him, and anyone who tries to stop me. I want you to understand that. I'm not the woman I was. I can't be. Not after everything. Marcus was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his words were careful. Understood. They rode into the deepening night, the forest closing around them like a fist. Behind them, in the town they'd left burning, the bodies were being discovered. Questions were being asked, and word was spreading. Word of a pregnant woman who killed 3 mercenaries with her bare hands, who moved like a demon and fought like a queen. The hunt was on, and Elena Varelli was running out of places to hide. 3 days into their journey, the weather turned savage. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets. The wind howled through the trees, driving ice crystals into their faces like needles. Marcus's horse struggled through drifts that reached its chest, each step slower than the last. Elena shivered violently despite the furs Marcus had wrapped around her. Her fingers were numb, her lips blue. The cold was seeping into her bones, stealing what little warmth she had left. "We need to stop," she said through chattering teeth. "Can't. Not yet. There's a way station another mile ahead. We can shelter there." "I don't think I'll make it another mile." Marcus's arms tightened around her. "Yes, you will." But even he sounded uncertain. The baby had stopped moving. Elena pressed her hand to her stomach, trying to feel the familiar kicks, the reassuring pulse of life. Nothing. Panic clawed at her throat. "Marcus, I know. Hold on. We're almost there." The way station materialized out of the storm like a ghost. A small stone building half buried in snow, windows dark, door hanging crooked on its hinges. Abandoned, but it would have to do. Marcus dismounted and pulled Elena down after him. Her legs buckled. He caught her, half carrying her to the door. Inside was barely warmer than outside. The roof had holes. Snow piled in the corners, but there was a fireplace and old dry wood stacked against the wall. Marcus set Elena down near the hearth and went to work building a fire. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, kindling, sparks, careful breaths until flames caught and spread. Warmth began to fill the small space. Elena held her hands toward the fire, but she couldn't stop shaking. "The baby," she whispered. "He's not moving." Marcus crouched beside her, placing his hand on her stomach. His expression grew focused, listening. "He's there," he said after a moment. "Heartbeat strong. He's just conserved, protecting himself from the cold." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Marcus met her eyes. "He's a fighter, like his mother." Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to feel the baby kick, to have proof he was okay. But there was only silence. Marcus stripped off his wet cloak and wrapped it around Elena, then added his own body heat, pulling her against his chest. Body warmth. Fastest way to bring your temperature up. She was too cold to argue, too scared. They sat like that for hours, the fire crackling, the storm raging outside. Elena drifted in and out of consciousness, her thoughts fragmenting. She dreamed of Ronan, not the man who'd crowned Leora, but the man she'd fallen in love with, strong and certain, his eyes warm when he looked at her, his hands gentle when they touched. A lie. It had all been a lie. When she woke, the storm had quieted. Gray dawn light filtered through the holes in the roof. Marcus was still holding her, his breathing slow and steady. Elena shifted, testing her limbs. Warmer. She could feel her fingers and toes again. And there, a small flutter in her belly. The baby, moving again, alive. Relief flooded through her so intensely it brought tears to her eyes. "He's okay," she whispered. Marcus stirred. "Told you. Fighters." They left the way station an hour later, back into the cold but moving forward. Always forward. One more day to the palace. One more day until Elena faced the man who'd destroyed her. One more day until everything changed. Again. The palace rose from the frozen landscape like a monument to broken promises. Elena saw it first through a break in the trees. White stone towers against a gray sky, banners snapping in the wind, smoke rising from 1,000 chimneys. It looked exactly as she remembered, cold, beautiful, merciless. Her hands tightened on the saddle horn. "We don't have to do this," Marcus said quietly. "I can take you somewhere else. Somewhere safe." "There is nowhere safe." Elena's voice was flat. "Not for me. Not anymore." They rode through the outer gates just as the sun began to set. Guards lined the walls, their faces hard and watchful. Word had spread about her return. She could see it in the way they stared, the whispers that followed in their wake. The disgraced queen, back from the dead, carrying the king's bastard. Or was it his heir? The palace courtyard was crowded with nobles and servants, all pretending not to watch as Marcus helped Elena down from the horse. Her legs nearly gave out, but she forced herself to stand straight, head high, refusing to show weakness. A figure emerged from the main entrance. Kael, his scarred face unreadable. "So it's true," he said, his eyes moving to Elena's swollen belly. "You're alive." "Disappointed?" Elena met his gaze steadily. "Surprised." Kael glanced at Marcus. "The king wants to see her. Now." "She needs rest," Marcus said. "Food. A healer. The king wants to see her now. Kale's tone left no room for argument. Elena touched Marcus's arm. It's fine. Let's get this over with. They followed Kyle through corridors Elena had once walked freely, now flanked by guards like a prisoner. The whispers grew louder. Servants ducked into doorways. Nobles turned to stare. She kept her expression blank, her steps steady. Let them look. Let them judge. She was done caring what they thought. Ronan's private study was in the West Tower, overlooking the training grounds. Kyle stopped at the door. He's alone, he said to Marcus. You wait here. I'm not leaving her. You'll wait here. Kale's hand moved to his sword. Or you'll leave the palace entirely. Your choice. Marcus looked at Elena. She nodded slightly. He stepped back, jaw tight with frustration. Kale opened the door. Good luck. Elena walked in alone. The study was exactly as she remembered. Shelves crammed with books and maps, a massive desk covered in papers, weapons mounted on the walls. And standing by the window, silhouetted against the dying light, was Ronan. He turned as she entered. 3 months. It had only been 3 months since the bond breaking, but he looked years older. His face was harder, leaner. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His hair was longer, unkempt. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. Elena. Her name came out rough, like it hurt to say. She didn't respond, just stood there, one hand resting on her belly, waiting. Ronan's eyes dropped to her stomach. Something flickered across his face, shock, pain, hope. He took a step forward, then stopped himself. Is it mine? The question was barely a whisper. Does it matter? Yes. His voice broke on the word. It matters. Elena laughed, cold and sharp. Now it matters. 3 months ago, when I was barren and inconvenient, it didn't matter at all. But now that Leora's child turned out to be a lie, suddenly you care. I made a mistake. You made a choice. And choices have consequences. Ronan flinched like she'd struck him. I know what I did, what I threw away. If I could take it back, you can't. Elena's voice was hard as stone. The bond is broken. What we had is dead. You made sure of that. Then why did you come back? Because Marcus gave me 2 options. Come back, or spend the rest of my life running from mercenaries and hunters. I chose survival. Not you. Never you. Ronan moved to his desk, bracing his hands on the edge like he needed the support. The child. Is it healthy? He's strong, growing fast. Too fast, probably. He? Ronan's head snapped up. A son? Yes. Elena's hand pressed protectively against her stomach. Your heir. The one you wanted so badly you were willing to destroy everything to get. I didn't know you were pregnant. If I had... You would have what? Kept me around as a broodmare? Pretended to care while you still kept Leora warming your bed? Leora is in the dungeons. Ronan's voice turned cold. Awaiting trial for treason. Her lover confessed everything. The deception, the fake pregnancy, the plan to take the throne. She'll be executed within the week. Good. Is that all you have to say? Elena shrugged. She tried to steal your crown. She deserves what she gets, but that doesn't change what you did. You believed her. You chose her. You threw me away like I was nothing. I thought... Ronan's voice cracked. The physician said you were barren, that you could never give me an heir. And then Leora appeared, carrying what they swore was mine, and the council was pushing for stability. And I thought, you thought wrong. Elena cut him off. And now we're both paying the price. Silence fell between them, thick and suffocating. Ronan was the first to break it. What do you want, Elena? Name it. Anything. I want the bond back. The words came out before she could stop them. I want the last 3 months erased. I want to go back to before Leora, before the doubts, before you looked at me like I was worthless. But I can't have any of that. So instead, I want terms. Terms? I stay until the child is born and strong enough to survive without me. You give me rooms in the East Wing, far from yours. You don't touch me, don't speak to me unless absolutely necessary, and you don't pretend we're anything other than what we are. 2 people bound by a child and nothing else. Ronan's face went pale. You're asking me to treat you like a stranger. I'm telling you I am a stranger. The woman you knew died the night you severed the bond. I'm what's left. And after the child is born, I leave. You keep the heir. I disappear. We never see each other again. No. The word was immediate, absolute. You're not taking my son and you're not leaving. I won't allow it. Elena's eyes flashed gold. You won't allow it? You think you have any right to tell me what I can and can't do? You're carrying the future king. I'm carrying my son. Mine. I'm the one who's been protecting him, fighting for him, nearly dying for him while you were playing house with your whore. This child is mine by blood and sacrifice. You're just the man who provided the seed. Ronan's control snapped. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing Elena's shoulders. He's my son, my heir, my blood. You don't get to take him from me. Power flared through Elena's body, hot and vicious. She grabbed Ronan's wrists, her fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Let go. He did, stumbling back as if burned. His eyes went wide, shocked. What was that? Something that's none of your concern. Elena smoothed her dress, her breathing ragged. Here are my terms. Take them or I walk out that door and you never see either of us again. Ronan stared at her, and for the first time since she'd entered the room, she saw real fear in his eyes. Not of her. Of losing her. Too late. Fine, he said finally. You stay in the East Wing. We keep our distance. But after the child is born, we renegotiate. Everything is on the table. There's nothing to negotiate. We'll see. Ronan moved back to his desk, putting distance between them. Kyle will show you to your rooms. Marin will examine you tomorrow. If you need anything, I'll manage on my own, like I have been. Elena turned to leave. Elena. She stopped but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, for what it's worth. It's not worth anything, she said quietly. But at least now you know how it feels. She walked out. Bassett. The rooms Kyle assigned her were in the farthest corner of the East Wing, as far from Ronan's quarters as physically possible while still being inside the palace. They were smaller than her old chambers, but cleaner, warmer. Someone had already laid a fire in the hearth and left fresh clothes on the bed. Elena locked the door behind her and leaned against it, her knees shaking. She'd done it. Faced Ronan and survived. But the victory felt hollow. A knock at the door made her jump. Who is it? Marin. Elena opened the door. The healer stood in the hallway, carrying a leather bag and wearing an expression that was equal parts concern and exasperation. You look terrible, Marin said bluntly. Nice to see you, too. May I come in? Elena stepped aside. Marin entered, setting her bag on the table and immediately beginning to pull out supplies. Herbs, bandages, vials of medicine. Sit, she ordered. Elena sat. Marin examined her with practiced efficiency, checking her pulse, her temperature, pressing careful hands against her swollen belly. Her expression grew increasingly troubled. How far along did I say you were when you left? She asked. 14 weeks. You're at 23 now, maybe 24. This child is growing twice as fast as he should be. Is that bad? It's unusual. Alpha pregnancies are faster than human ones, but this... Marin shook her head. You'll deliver early. Very early. 8 weeks at most, maybe less. 8 weeks, 2 months. Elena's hand moved to her stomach. Will he be okay? If he's anything like his mother, he'll be fine. Marin pulled out a bundle of herbs. But you need to rest. Actually rest, not whatever you've been doing. You're malnourished, exhausted, and your wolf is barely holding on. Another week like this and you'll miscarry. Fear shot through Elena like ice water. What do I need to do? Eat? Sleep? Stay warm? Let me check on you every day. Marin's expression softened slightly. And try not to kill anyone. I heard about the mercenaries. 3-on-1 while pregnant. That's insane even by Luna standards. They didn't give me a choice. They rarely do. Marin finished packing her supplies. I'll send up food. You'll eat all of it. And tomorrow we start on strengthening tonics. This baby's coming whether we're ready or not, so we better make sure you both survive it. She left, her footsteps fading down the corridor. Elena sat alone in the firelight, one hand pressed to her belly, feeling the strong, insistent kicks of her son. 8 weeks, 2 months until her life changed forever. Again. The days blurred together. Elena stayed in her rooms mostly, venturing out only for brief walks in the gardens when the weather allowed. Marin visited daily, forcing her to drink vile-tasting tonics and eat more than she thought possible. Slowly, painfully, her strength returned. The baby grew. Fast. Too fast. By the end of the first week, Elena's belly had swollen so large she could barely walk without pain shooting through her back and hips. By the second week, she couldn't sleep lying down anymore, could only doze sitting up with pillows supporting her weight. Marin examined her with increasing concern. "He's coming soon, very soon, I can feel it." "How soon?" "Days, maybe a week if we're lucky." The healer met Elena's eyes. "Are you ready?" No, she wasn't ready. Wasn't ready to push a whole human out of her body. Wasn't ready to become a mother. Wasn't ready for any of this. But ready or not, it was happening. "I'll manage," Elena said. She always did. On the 10th night, the dreams started. Not nightmares. Something else. Visions maybe, or warnings. She saw a frozen wasteland, blood on snow, a child screaming. Saw Ronan's face twisted in rage. Saw herself standing alone against an army, her hands slick with gore, her eyes burning gold. She woke gasping, sweat soaking through her nightgown despite the cold. The baby was kicking frantically, as if trying to escape. "I know," Elena whispered, pressing her hand to her stomach. "I know, something's wrong." A sound outside her window made her freeze. Not wind, not snow. Footsteps. Elena grabbed the knife she kept under her pillow and moved to the window. The courtyard below was dark, empty, but she could smell them. Wolves, at least a dozen, moving through the shadows with predatory silence. This wasn't the palace guard. This was something else. Elena's door burst open. Kael stood in the doorway, fully armed, his face grim. "We need to move, now!" "What's happening?" "Leora's allies. They broke her out of the dungeons an hour ago. They're inside the palace." He grabbed Elena's arm, pulling her toward the door. "They're coming for you." "Why?" "Because killing you and the child is the only way to destabilize Ronan's rule completely. If the heir dies, the kingdom falls into chaos. That's what they want." Screams echoed from somewhere deep in the palace. The clash of steel on steel, shouts of alarm. "Can you run?" Kael asked. Elena looked down at her enormous belly. "Not far." "Then we fight." He thrust a sword into her hands. Elena took it, the weight familiar and strange at once. She hadn't held a blade since the night she killed Gareth. More footsteps in the corridor, getting closer. Kael pushed Elena behind him, his own sword raised. "Stay close." The first attacker came around the corner. A man Elena didn't recognize, dressed in black, face covered. Kael met him head-on, their blades crashing together with a sound like thunder. Elena pressed herself against the wall, trying to stay out of the way. The baby kicked hard, painfully, as if sensing the danger. 2 more attackers appeared. Kael couldn't fight all 3. Elena gritted her teeth and stepped forward. The power that had saved her in the alley surged through her veins, wild and electric. She moved without thinking, her blade finding the gap in the first man's armor, driving deep into his chest. He went down gurgling. The second man turned to face her, shock written across what little of his face she could see. "Pregnant bitches don't fight," he snarled. "This one does." Elena ripped her sword free and swung. He blocked, but barely. She pressed the attack, her movements fluid despite her size. The power made her faster, stronger, compensated for the pregnancy's awkwardness. She drove him back, until his heel caught on the body of his fallen comrade. He stumbled. Elena's blade found his throat. Kael finished his opponent and turned to her, breathing hard. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "I didn't." Elena stared at her hands, slick with blood. "It's the baby. He's making me—" An explosion rocked the palace. The floor shook. Stone dust rained from the ceiling. "They're destroying the palace," Kael said. "We need to get you out. Now." They ran, through corridors filled with smoke and screaming, past bodies, guards, servants, attackers. The palace was burning, chaos everywhere. Elena's legs burned, her belly felt like it was tearing apart from the inside. But she kept moving. They reached the stables. Most of the horses were gone, stolen, or freed in the chaos. Only a few remained, wild-eyed and terrified. Kyle grabbed the nearest one, a black mare, and boosted Elena into the saddle. "Ride north, into the mountains. There's an old fortress, abandoned. You'll be safe there until—" "What about Ronan?" "The king can take care of himself." Kale slapped the horse's rump. "Go!" The mare bolted. Elena held on with everything she had, her world narrowing to the pounding of hooves and the cold wind in her face. Behind her the palace burned, orange flames licking at the night sky. She rode into the forest, into the dark, away from everything she'd ever known. The contraction started an hour later. At first Elena thought it was just pain from riding, but then it came again, a crushing, squeezing sensation that wrapped around her entire belly and stole her breath. No, not yet, not now. But her body didn't care about timing or safety or readiness. The baby was coming. Elena pulled the horse to a stop, barely managing to dismount before another contraction hit. She cried out, doubling over, her hands clutching her stomach. Snow began to fall, thick, heavy flakes that blurred the world to white. She needed shelter, needed help. There was nothing. Just trees and snow and the howling wind. Another contraction, stronger this time. Elena stumbled forward looking for anything, a cave, an overhang, somewhere out of the storm. She found nothing. Her water broke in a warm rush that froze almost instantly against her thighs. The contractions came faster now, relentless, like her body was trying to tear itself apart. Elena collapsed against a tree, gasping. This was happening. Right here, right now, alone in a blizzard with no help and no hope. She was going to die out here. Her and the baby both. Movement in the trees. Elena looked up, hope flaring in her chest. Maybe Kyle had followed. Maybe. A figure emerged from the storm. Tall, broad, moving with a wolf's grace despite the human form. Ronan. He saw her and his face went white. Elena, stay back. She tried to stand, failed. Another contraction ripped through her. Stay the hell away from me. You're in labor. Brilliant observation. Ronan dropped to his knees beside her, his hands hovering like he was afraid to touch. We need to get you somewhere warm. The fortress isn't far. I'm not going to make it that far. Elena's voice broke. The baby's coming now. Ronan's expression shifted from shock to grim determination. Then we deliver him here. You don't know how. I've delivered wolf pups. It can't be that different. It's very different, you idiot. Elena's words cut off in a scream as another contraction hit, harder than before. Ronan caught her as she collapsed forward. I've got you. I've got you. For the first time in months, Elena let herself lean into him. Not because she'd forgiven him, because she had no choice. The storm raged around them, and somewhere deep in the frozen wilderness, a child prepared to enter a world that had already tried to kill him before he was born. I need you to focus, Ronan said, his voice cutting through Elena's pain like a blade through fog. Look at me. Elena forced her eyes open. His face was inches from hers, snow already gathering on his dark hair, his breath fogging in the frigid air. I can't do this, she gasped. Not here. Not like this. Yes, you can. His hands moved to her shoulders, steadying her. You've survived everything they threw at you. This is just one more fight. Another contraction hit, so powerful Elena thought her spine would snap. She screamed, her claws extending involuntarily, tearing through Ronan's sleeves and into his flesh. He didn't flinch. That's it. Get angry. Use it. I hate you, she snarled through gritted teeth. I know. Hold on to that. The contraction passed, leaving her gasping and shaking. Ronan stripped off his cloak and spread it on the snow, creating a barrier between Elena and the frozen ground. We need to get you out of these clothes, he said. They're soaked through. You'll freeze. Touch me and I'll kill you. You can kill me after. Right now we're saving our son. He started unlacing her dress with quick, efficient movements. Trust me or don't, but I'm not letting either of you die out here. Elena wanted to fight him, wanted to push him away and do this alone, prove she didn't need him. But another contraction was building, a tidal wave of pain that drowned out everything else. Ronan got her dress off and wrapped her in his heavy wool shirt, then positioned himself behind her, letting her lean back against his chest. His body heat was the only thing keeping her from shaking apart. "How close are the contractions?" he asked. "Too close. Maybe 2 minutes apart." "That's fast for a first birth." "Alpha child," Elena managed. "Everything's faster." Ronan's arms circled her, not constraining, just supporting. "Tell me what you need." "A healer, a warm room, literally anything other than a frozen forest in the middle of a blizzard." "Can't help with those." "What else?" Elena laughed, high and slightly hysterical. "This is insane. We're going to die out here." "We're not dying. I won't allow it." "You don't get to decide." The next contraction cut off her words. This one was different, deeper. She felt something shift inside her, felt her body preparing for the final stage. "I need to push," she gasped. "Not yet. Wait until... I need to push now." Ronan moved quickly, positioning himself where he could see. His face went pale. "I can see his head, dark hair. Elena, he's almost here." "Then help me get him out." The next minutes were a blur of pain and pressure, and Ronan's voice in her ear, steady and certain, talking her through each contraction. "Push, breathe, rest, again." Elena bore down with everything she had, her wolf rising to the surface, lending her strength she didn't know she possessed. The power that had saved her in fights, that had killed trained warriors. Now it was focused on this singular purpose, bringing life into the world instead of taking it. "Heads out," Ronan said, his voice tight. "One more push. Just one more." Elena gathered herself, every muscle screaming, and pushed with everything she had left. The baby slid free in a rush of fluid and blood. For one terrible moment, there was only silence. No cry. No movement. Then Ronan's voice, shaking but determined. "He's not breathing. Elena, he's not..." Power erupted from Elena like a shock wave. It wasn't conscious, wasn't controlled. Pure instinct, a mother's desperate need to save her child. The energy hit Ronan and the baby both, knocking Ronan backward. The infant jerked in his hands, back arching, and screamed. The sound was furious, indignant, very much alive. Elena collapsed forward, sobbing with relief. "Is he okay? Let me see him." Ronan moved closer, cradling the tiny, blood-covered infant against his chest. The baby's eyes were squeezed shut, his face red with rage, his small fists waving. "He's perfect," Ronan whispered. "Elena, he's perfect." He placed the baby on Elena's chest. She wrapped her arms around him instinctively, feeling the rapid flutter of his heartbeat against her skin. The baby's cries quieted to hiccups, then stopped altogether as he found her scent. "Hello?" Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Hello, little one. We made it." Ronan used his knife to cut the cord, his hands surprisingly gentle. Then he wrapped both Elena and the baby in his cloak, trying to preserve what little warmth they had. "We can't stay here," he said. "The cold will kill you both within the hour." "I can't walk." "Then I'll carry you." Before Elena could argue, Ronan scooped her up, baby and all, and started moving through the forest. His steps were sure despite the snow, despite the darkness. "How did you find me?" Elena asked, her voice weak. "Followed your scent, and..." He hesitated. "I felt something, when the contractions started, like an echo where the bond used to be." "That's impossible. The bond is gone." "I know, but I felt it anyway." Elena didn't have the energy to argue. She pressed her face against Ronan's shoulder, holding their son close, and let him carry them through the storm. The wind howled around them, cutting through fabric and skin alike. Snow fell so thick Elena couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Ronan's breathing grew labored, his steps slowing, but he didn't stop. Didn't complain. The baby started crying again, weak, mewling sounds that tore at Elena's heart. He was cold, hungry, too new for this harsh world. "Hold on," she whispered to him. "Just hold on a little longer." The fortress appeared like a ghost, crumbling stone walls half buried in snow, towers collapsed into rubble. But part of the main keep still stood, offering shelter from the wind. Ronan kicked open a door that hung crooked on its hinges. Inside was dark and cold, but dry. He set Elena down carefully against a wall, then immediately began gathering debris, broken furniture, old wood, anything that would burn. His hands were shaking from cold and exhaustion. It took 3 tries to get his flint to spark. "Let me," Elena said, though she could barely move. "Save your strength. You just gave birth in a blizzard. Let me do this." The 4th strike caught. A tiny flame licked at the kindling, grew stronger, spread to the larger pieces. Within minutes, he had a real fire going. The flames caught and spread, throwing dancing shadows across the ruined walls. Warmth. Blessed warmth. Elena leaned toward it, unwrapping the baby enough to check him over. 10 fingers, 10 toes. A thick shock of dark hair. Eyes that opened briefly, showing a flash of gold before closing again. "He's strong," she said softly. "Stronger than he should be." Like his mother, Ronan was stripping off his wet clothes, laying them near the fire to dry. He was left in his undershirt and trousers, blood and afterbirth staining both. Elena looked away. Even now, even after everything, seeing him half-dressed made something twist in her chest. Muscle memory from when they'd been happy, when she'd trusted him. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for finding us, for helping." Ronan settled on the opposite side of the fire. "You don't need to thank me. He's my son too." "Is he?" The words came out sharper than she intended. "You wanted to throw me away when you thought I couldn't give you an heir. Now that I have, suddenly you care?" "I've always cared." "You have a terrible way of showing it." Ronan stared into the flames. "I was afraid. Of losing the kingdom, of the council turning on me, of being seen as weak. Leora offered me an easy solution, an heir without the complications. I took it because I was a coward." "And what are you now?" "Still a coward, but trying to be better." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "I know I can't undo what I did. Can't repair the bond or take back the hurt. But I can be here now. I can fight for you both, if you'll let me." Elena wanted to tell him no, wanted to push him away, keep her walls up, protect herself from more pain. But she was so tired of fighting alone. "One day at a time," she said finally. "That's all I can promise. That's enough." The baby stirred, making small, hungry sounds. Elena tried to shift him into position to feed, but pain shot through her abdomen. She gasped, nearly dropping him. Ronan was there in an instant. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just sore. Everything hurts. Let me help." He positioned the baby carefully, supporting his head while Elena got him latched. It took several tries, both of them fumbling and awkward, but finally the baby began to nurse. Elena leaned back against the wall, exhausted beyond measure. Ronan stayed close, one hand supporting the baby's back, the other resting on Elena's shoulder. "What should we name him?" he asked quietly. "I don't know. I hadn't thought that far ahead." "He needs a name, something strong." Elena looked down at her son, her fierce, perfect son who'd fought his way into the world against impossible odds. "Kieran," she said. "It means dark-haired warrior, seems fitting. Kieran Drax." Ronan tested the name. "The true heir to the Northern Territories." "Just Kieran. Let him choose his own titles when he's old enough." They sat in silence, watching the baby nurse, the fire crackling, the storm raging outside. For the first time in months, Elena felt something close to peace. It didn't last. The sound of approaching footsteps jolted them both alert. Multiple sets. Moving fast. Ronan was on his feet instantly, sword in hand. "Stay down. Keep Kieran quiet." Elena pressed the baby close, covering his mouth gently. He'd stopped nursing and was blinking sleepily, unaware of the danger. The footsteps stopped just outside. Voices murmured, too low to make out words. Then the door crashed inward. 5 figures entered, weapons drawn. 4 men and a woman, all dressed in black, faces covered. The same attackers from the palace. The woman in front pulled down her mask. It was Leora. She looked terrible, bruised and bloody, her dress torn, her eyes wild, but very much alive. "Well," she said, her voice dripping venom. "Isn't this touching? The disgraced queen and her bastard hiding in the ruins like rats." "He's not a bastard," Ronan said coldly. "He's my legitimate heir, which is more than anyone can say about the parasite you tried to pass off as mine." Leora's face twisted with rage. "My son would have been king. would have united the territories under new rule, but you had to go digging for the truth, had to believe the lies of jealous counselors. I believe the evidence, the DNA tests, your lover's confession. Ronan's grip tightened on his sword. You're done, Leora. Your coup failed. Surrender now and I'll make your execution quick. I'm not surrendering. Leora gestured to her men. Kill them, all of them, especially the brat. The men rushed forward. Ronan met them head on, his blade singing through the air. He was magnificent in battle, all controlled violence and deadly precision. He cut down the first man in seconds, parrying a strike, and driving his sword through the attacker's gut in one fluid motion. The second man came at him from the side. Ronan spun, his blade catching firelight, and slashed across the attacker's throat. Blood sprayed across the stone floor. But there were too many, and he was already exhausted from the journey, from the delivery, from everything. One of the attackers got past him, heading straight for Elena and Kieran. Elena's wolf exploded to the surface. She'd just given birth. Should have been weak, vulnerable. Her body was torn and bleeding, barely able to stand. Instead, power flooded her veins like liquid fire. The same wild energy that had saved her before, but stronger now, amplified by something she didn't understand. She moved faster than thought, placing Kieran carefully on Ronan's cloak and surging to her feet. Her claws extended, longer and sharper than before. Her eyes burned gold. The attacker stopped, shock written across his face. What the? Elena tore out his throat before he could finish. Blood sprayed hot across her face. The man fell, gurgling and twitching. Elena stepped over him without a second glance. The next man came at her with a blade. She caught it with her bare hand, the edge slicing through her palm. It should have hurt, should have stopped her. It didn't. She felt the pain, distant and irrelevant, like it was happening to someone else. The power burning through her veins drowned out everything else. She ripped the sword from his grasp and drove it through his chest. He staggered backward, eyes wide with disbelief, and collapsed. Leora was screaming orders, her voice shrill with panic. Kill her! Kill the bitch! What are you waiting for? The last attacker hesitated, clearly not wanting to face whatever Elena had become. His eyes darted between her and the door, weighing his chances. Ronan took advantage, running him through from behind. The man's sword clattered to the floor. He fell without a sound. That left only Leora. She backed toward the door, her eyes wide with terror. Stay away from me, both of you. I'm still a lady of the court. You can't touch me without trial. You gave up that protection the moment you tried to kill my son, Ronan said flatly. Elena stepped forward. Blood dripped from her hands, from her face, soaking into the stone floor. Her eyes still burned with that terrible golden light. You wanted him dead, a baby, an innocent child who never did anything to you. Ah, he's an obstacle, Leora spat. As long as he lives, my son has no claim. Your son doesn't exist. Elena's voice was cold as winter. And neither will you. She moved. Leora tried to run, made it 3 steps before Elena caught her, grabbing her by the hair and slamming her against the wall. Please, Leora gasped. Please, I'll leave. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. You tried to take everything from me. Elena's claws pressed against Leora's throat. My mate, my crown, my life. And when that wasn't enough, you came for my son. I was desperate. So was I. But I didn't try to murder children. There was no mercy, no hesitation. Elena's claws found Leora's throat and tore. The woman who'd stolen her crown, her mate, her life, gone in seconds. Elena stood over the body, breathing hard, her hands slick with blood. Slowly the power began to fade, her eyes returning to normal, her claws retracting. The fortress spun around her, her legs buckled. Ronan caught her before she fell. Easy, I've got you. Kieran, he's fine, see? Ronan guided her to where the baby lay, still sleeping peacefully, despite the violence. He didn't even wake up. Elena sank down beside her son, checking him over with shaking hands. Still perfect, still whole, still alive. What's happening to me? She whispered. That power. It's getting stronger. I can feel it. It's the bond, Ronan said quietly. Elena looked up sharply. What? The bond. It's reforming. I can feel it too, faint, But there, it started when Kieran was born. Ronan knelt beside her. When you pushed that power into him, into me, to make him breathe, it created a new connection. Not like before. Different. Stronger. Elena pressed her hand to her chest. There, beneath the exhaustion and pain, a tiny thread of warmth. A connection that hadn't been there before. That's impossible. You can't rebuild a severed bond. Apparently you can. Ronan's expression was cautious, hopeful. If you're willing. Elena stared at him. At this man who'd broken her heart, who'd just helped deliver their son, who'd fought beside her against impossible odds. She felt the bond between them, fragile as spider silk but undeniably real. It pulsed with each heartbeat, growing stronger. I don't forgive you, she said finally. I don't know if I ever will. I know. But I don't want to fight you anymore. I'm too tired. Then we call a truce. We focus on keeping Kieran safe. Everything else can wait. Elena nodded slowly. It wasn't reconciliation, wasn't love. But it was something. A foundation to build on, maybe. Or at least a ceasefire in a war they'd both lost. Outside, the storm was breaking. The first light of dawn filtered through the cracks in the walls, pale and cold. Kieran stirred, making small sounds. Elena picked him up, cradling him close. He was warm and solid and real, the only thing in her life that made sense anymore. We should go back, Ronan said. The palace, what's left of it. The people need to see their heir, need to know the line continues. Will they accept him, after everything? They'll have to. He's got my blood, your strength. And he was born in the middle of a blizzard after his mother killed 5 assassins while barely conscious. Ronan smiled slightly. I think he's proven his worth already. Elena looked down at Kieran. His eyes were open now, staring up at her with that intense, focused gaze newborns sometimes had, as if he understood everything being said. You hear that? She whispered. You're already a legend and you're only a few hours old, no pressure. The baby made a small sound that might have been agreement or gas. Hard to tell. Ronan helped Elena to her feet, supporting her weight. She was weak, shaky, blood still dripping from the wounds on her hands. But alive. They were all alive. Against every odd, against every attempt to destroy them, they'd survived. We need to clean up first, Elena said, looking at the bodies scattered across the floor. And I need to wash. I can't walk into the palace looking like I bathed in blood. There's a well outside. The water will be freezing, but I've given birth in a blizzard. I think I can handle cold water. They worked together, Ronan dragging the bodies outside while Elena cleaned herself as best she could. The water from the well was so cold it made her gasp, but it washed away the worst of the blood. She found her ruined dress and put it back on. It was torn and stained, but better than nothing. Ronan wrapped Kieran in layers of fabric, protecting him from the cold. The walk back to the palace took hours. Ronan carried Kieran while Elena leaned heavily on his arm, her body screaming in protest with every step. But she forced herself forward, refusing to stop, refusing to show weakness. The sun climbed higher. The snow began to melt, creating streams of icy water that soaked through their boots. Tell me about the attack, Elena said, needing the distraction from the pain. How bad was it? Bad enough. They had inside help, guards, servants, even a few nobles. Leora's network was deeper than we thought. Ronan's jaw tightened. They killed dozens, burned the West Wing, nearly got to the treasury. And Kyle stopped them? Kyle and the loyal guards. It was close. If they'd waited another hour, if we hadn't returned when we did. He didn't finish the thought. They walked in silence for a while. Then Elena asked the question that had been burning in her mind. Why did you come after me? Really? Ronan was quiet for a long moment. Because when I felt the bond echo, when I knew you were in labor, I realized something. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, hurt a lot of people. But letting you leave, letting you think you were worthless, that was the worst thing I've ever done. And if I let you die alone in the wilderness, I'd never forgive myself. So it was guilt. It was love. His voice was soft. Broken, damaged love, but still love. Elena didn't respond. Couldn't. The words were too much, too complicated. But the bond between them hummed, warm and alive, And some part of her, the part that remembered what they'd been, responded despite everything. When they finally emerged from the forest, the sun was high overhead. The palace rose before them, scarred and smoking but still standing. Guards saw them first. Shouts went up. People came running. Kyle reached them first, his scarred face breaking into something close to a smile. "You're alive. All three of you." "Hard to kill," Elena said. "So I see." His eyes moved to the baby in Ronan's arms. "The heir." "Kieran," Ronan said. "Born in a storm, delivered in the wild. The strongest child I've ever seen." "Looks like his mother, then." Kale's expression grew serious. "The council is waiting. They want answers, explanations, proof." "They'll get all of that," Elena said. "But first I need a bed, and food, and about 3 days of sleep." "You'll get an hour at most." "The council won't wait," Elena sighed. Of course they wouldn't. Word spread through the palace like wildfire. By the time they reached the main courtyard, a crowd had gathered. Nobles, guards, servants, everyone pressing close to see. Whispers followed them. The disgraced queen, the true heir, the king who kneeled. Ronan held Kieran up, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "I present to you Kieran Drax, true heir to the Northern Territories, born to Elena Varelli, the rightful Luna Queen. Any who dispute his claim can face me directly." Silence. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then the whole courtyard erupted in cheers. Elena stood beside Ronan, one hand pressed to her aching body, the other reaching for her son. She was filthy, bloody, barely able to stand, but she was a queen, and everyone could see it. Ronan turned to her, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "They're cheering for you. Not me. You." "They're cheering for hope," Elena said, "for the idea that something broken can be made whole again." "Can it?" She met his eyes. The bond pulsed between them, fragile but growing stronger with each passing moment. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I'm willing to find out." Ronan handed Kieran to her carefully. The baby nestled against her chest, content and safe. And in that moment, standing in the ruined courtyard of a palace that had tried to destroy her, holding the child she'd nearly died to bring into the world, Elena felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not love, but power. Real power. The kind that came from surviving the unsurvivable, from refusing to break when the world demanded it, from standing up and claiming what was hers by right of blood and sacrifice. She looked out at the crowd, at the faces watching her with awe and respect and something close to fear. "I am Elena Varelli," she said, her voice carrying across the courtyard. "Mother of the heir, Luna Queen by right of survival, and I am not going anywhere." The cheers grew louder. Ronan knelt beside her, his head bowed, not in submission, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. That she was no longer the woman he'd cast aside. She was something new, something forged in pain and fury and impossible choices. She was the storm they'd tried to erase, and she had just begun to show them what she was capable of. The High Council convened in what remained of the throne room 2 hours after Elena's return. She walked in carrying Kieran, refusing the cradle the servants had prepared. Ronan walked beside her, not ahead, not behind. Equal. 6 council members sat in a semicircle, their faces ranging from disapproving to openly hostile. High Chancellor Oren led them, his thin lips pressed into a line so tight it looked painful. "This is highly irregular," he began without preamble. "A disgraced Luna returning with a child of questionable—" "Finish that sentence and I'll have your tongue." Ronan's voice was ice. "My son's legitimacy is not up for debate." "The king's personal feelings aside," Lady Vera spoke up, her steel-gray hair pulled back severely, "we must consider appearances. 3 months ago you declared Elena barren and severed your bond. Now she returns pregnant, and suddenly everything has changed. The people are confused. They need clarity." "Then give them clarity." Elena shifted Kieran, who was starting to fuss. "Tell them the truth. That your physicians were bribed. That Leora's conspiracy ran deeper than anyone knew. That I was exiled based on lies." Murmurs rippled through the council. One of the younger members, Lord Castor, leaned forward. "You have proof of these bribes?" "Marin has the bank records," Ronan said. "Payments from the Ashford family to the head physician. Enough gold to buy a small estate. The same physician who declared Elena barren is now in custody, awaiting trial. And Leora herself? Oren asked. Dead, Elena said flatly. Along with her mercenaries. They attacked us at the old fortress. None survived. The room went silent. Several council members exchanged glances. You killed her, Oren said slowly. The woman who was, until yesterday, recognized as Luna Queen. The woman who tried to murder my infant son. Elena's eyes flashed gold. Yes, I killed her, and I'd do it again. This is exactly what concerns us. Oren stood, his robes rustling. You return with power we don't understand, making demands, killing rivals. How do we know you're not the threat? How do we know this child is even the king's? The bond flared between Elena and Ronan, sudden and violent. Power surged through the room, making the torches flicker, sending papers flying. When it settled, Elena was standing, her free hand extended toward Oren. Golden energy crackled around her fingers. Question my son's parentage again, she said softly, and you'll learn exactly what kind of threat I am. Oren stumbled backward, his face pale. Elena. Ronan's hand on her shoulder, warm and grounding. He's not worth it. She let the power fade, but kept her eyes locked on Oren. The bond is reforming. Anyone with half a brain can feel it. That doesn't happen unless the connection is real, unless the child is ours. So either accept that, or get out of my way. Our way, Ronan corrected quietly. Elena glanced at him. The bond hummed between them, stronger than it had been even an hour ago. She could feel his presence now, his emotions, concern, pride, something that might have been love. Our way, she agreed. Kieran chose that moment to start crying in earnest, his small face scrunching up. Elena tried to soothe him, but he was hungry and cold and done with all the political nonsense. We're not doing this now, she said. My son needs to eat, needs warmth, needs rest. You want to question me, question his legitimacy. You can do it after he's fed and sleeping. The council's business cannot wait. Then conduct it without me. Elena turned to leave. I've given birth in a blizzard, killed 5 assassins, and walked 10 miles bleeding. I'm done performing for people who still think I owe them explanations. She made it 3 steps before Oren's voice stopped her. If you walk out of this chamber, you forfeit any claim to the title of Luna Queen. Elena turned slowly. I never wanted your title. I wanted respect. I wanted to be heard. I wanted my mate to trust me over a scheming parasite. You've given me none of those things, so keep your title. I don't need it. Elena, Ronan started, but understand this. Elena's voice carried through the chamber, strong and clear. I am the mother of the true heir. That makes me more important than every single person in this room, including you, Chancellor. Because if something happens to me, if I decide to take my son and disappear, your precious bloodline ends. Your kingdom falls into chaos. Everything you've spent centuries building crumbles to dust. She let that sink in. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to investigate the conspiracy. You're going to expose every person who helped Leora. You're going to publicly clear my name and admit you were wrong. And then, only then, we'll discuss what role I play in this kingdom. Silence. Absolute silence. Then Lady Vera did something unexpected. She laughed. You've got steel in you, girl. I'll give you that. The old woman stood, her joints creaking. I move that we grant Elena Varelli full restoration of her title and rights, pending investigation into the conspiracy against her. Seconded, Lord Castor said immediately. Oren looked like he'd swallowed glass. This is premature. This is overdue, Lady Vera snapped. We made a mistake. A catastrophic one that nearly cost us everything. Time to own it. The vote was 4-2 in Elena's favor. Oren and one other counselor abstained, but it didn't matter. Elena was Luna Queen again. She should have felt victorious, vindicated. Instead, she just felt tired. Thank you, she said quietly. Now if you'll excuse me, my son is starving. This time, no one stopped her. Ronan followed her out, closing the chamber doors behind them. In the corridor, away from watching eyes, his shoulders sagged. That was, he started. Necessary, Elena finished. They needed to understand. I'm not the woman they exiled. I can't be. I know. He touched her arm gently. But you scared me in there. The power. It's growing faster than I expected. It scares me too. Elena looked down at Kieran, who had quieted now that they were away from the council chamber. I don't know what's happening to me. To us. We'll figure it out. Together. The word hung between them. Together. Like they used to be. Like they might be again. But not yet. Too much was still broken. Marin was waiting in Elena's chambers, a tray of food and medical supplies already prepared. She took one look at Elena and scowled. You should be in bed. I was dealing with the council. The council can wait. You're bleeding through your dress. Marin pointed at the spreading stain. Sit. Now. Elena obeyed, too exhausted to argue. Ronan took Kieran while Marin examined her. You tore badly during delivery, the healer said, her hands gentle but firm. And you've been walking around for hours instead of resting. You're lucky you haven't hemorrhaged. I had things to do. Oh, well, now you're going to lie still while I stitch you up. This is going to hurt. It did. Elena bit down on a leather strap while Marin worked, sweat beading on her forehead. Ronan sat across the room with Kieran, deliberately looking away to give her privacy. When it was done, Marin wrapped her in clean bandages and handed her a cup of something that smelled vile. Drink. It'll help with the pain and speed healing. Elena drank. It tasted worse than it smelled. Now sleep, Marin ordered. At least 12 hours. No arguments. What about Kieran? I'll watch him, Ronan said. I can handle a few hours. Elena wanted to protest, wanted to keep her son close, but her body was shutting down, exhaustion pulling her under like a riptide. Wake me if he needs me, she mumbled, already drifting. I will. She fell asleep to the sound of Kieran's soft breathing and the crackle of the fire. For the first time in months, she felt safe. She woke to screaming. Not Kieran. Someone else. Multiple voices raised in alarm. Elena bolted upright, ignoring the pain that shot through her body. The room was dark. The fire had burned down to embers. Ronan was gone. Kieran was gone. Panic clawed at her throat. She grabbed the nearest weapon, a candlestick, and stumbled toward the door. The corridor outside was chaos. Guards running, servants crying, smoke billowing from somewhere below. What's happening? Elena grabbed a passing guard. Attack, my lady. The east gates. They're inside the palace. Who? We don't know. They're not wearing colors, not identifying themselves. They're just killing everyone they find. Leora's allies. Had to be. One last desperate attempt to destroy the bloodline. Where's the king? Where's my son? The nursery, last I saw. But that was 10 minutes ago. Elena didn't wait to hear more. She ran. Her body screamed in protest. Blood soaked through her bandages. She didn't care. The nursery was in the south tower, 3 floors up. Elena took the stairs 2 at a time, her wolf lending her strength she shouldn't have. She reached the nursery door to find it splintered, hanging off its hinges. Inside, carnage. 2 guards dead on the floor. A servant woman, throat cut, sprawled across the cradle. And standing in the center of the room, holding Kieran, was a man Elena didn't recognize. He was tall, scarred, with the look of a professional soldier, not palace guard. Mercenary. Put him down, Elena said, her voice deadly calm. The man looked at her, assessing. You're the mother. I'm a lot more than that. Put him down. Can't do that. I've got orders. The child dies tonight. Then you die first. Elena moved. The power that had been growing inside her since Kieran's birth erupted like a volcano. Golden energy engulfed her, transforming her. Her claws extended to twice their normal length. Her eyes burned so bright they cast shadows. The mercenary's confidence wavered. He took a step back, shifting Kieran to hold him like a shield. You attack me. You risk hitting the baby. You think I need to touch you to kill you? Elena's voice echoed strangely, layered with something that wasn't quite human. Put my son down and I'll make it quick. And if I don't, then I'll make it last. The mercenary made his choice. He threw Kieran. The baby sailed through the air, heading straight for the stone floor. Time slowed. Elena watched her son tumble, his small body vulnerable and helpless. She'd never reach him in time. Couldn't move fast enough. The bond flared. Ronan burst through the window, glass shattering around him. He caught Kieran mid-air, rolling to absorb the impact, shielding the baby with his body. "I've got him!" he shouted. "Elena, he's safe!" The power inside her, no longer restrained by fear for her son, unleashed. Elena became something other, something primal and terrible and absolutely merciless. She crossed the room in a blur, her claws finding the mercenary's chest. She tore through armor and flesh like paper, ripping out his heart before he could scream, but she didn't stop there. The rage, the fear, the months of pain and betrayal, all of it poured out. She destroyed him, completely, until there was nothing left that resembled a human being. When the red haze finally cleared, Elena was standing in a pool of blood, breathing hard, her hands dripping. Ronan stood in the corner, holding Kieran, his eyes wide. "Elena," he said carefully, "it's over. He's dead. You can stop now." She looked down at her hands, at what she'd done. The power was still there, coiled inside her chest, hungry for more violence. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't make it stop." "Yes, you can." But Ronan stepped closer, carefully. "Look at me." "Not at him." "At me." Elena forced her eyes up, met Ronan's gaze. "Breathe," he said. "Just breathe. You're safe. Kieran's safe. We're all safe." The bond between them pulsed, warm and steady, an anchor in the chaos. Slowly, the power began to recede. Her claws retracted. The golden light faded from her eyes. Elena collapsed. Ronan caught her with his free arm, supporting her weight. "I've got you, both of you." "Is he okay?" Elena's voice was hoarse. "Kieran, is he—" "He's fine. Didn't even cry when I caught him. Tough kid." Elena started laughing, then crying, then both at once, her body shaking with the release of adrenaline and terror and relief. Guards arrived, flooding the room. Kyle took charge immediately, ordering some to secure the tower, others to hunt down any remaining attackers. "How many?" Ronan asked. "A dozen, maybe more." They hit 3 locations simultaneously: the nursery, your chambers, and the council hall. Kale's expression was grim. This was coordinated, professional. "Leora's contingency plan," Elena said, "in case she failed." "Well, it failed too." Ronan looked at the remains of the mercenary. "Thanks to you." Elena didn't feel victorious, just exhausted, and scared of what she was becoming. Marin arrived, took one look at Elena, and started cursing. "You tore every stitch. You're bleeding everywhere, and you—" She pointed at Ronan. "You jumped through a window 3 stories up. Are you trying to kill yourselves?" "We were trying to save our son," Ronan said. "Well, you succeeded. Now let me patch you both up before you bleed out." The next hours were a blur of medical care, interrogations, and damage control. 8 attackers dead, 3 captured, dozens of palace staff wounded. But the royal family, all 3 of them, were alive. By dawn, the palace was secured. The surviving attackers confessed under questioning, revealing the scope of the conspiracy. Leora had planned for everything, including her own death. She'd set up contingencies, backup plans, sleeper agents scattered throughout the kingdom. It would take months to root them all out. "We can't stay here," Elena said. She was lying in bed, freshly bandaged, with Kieran sleeping on her chest. "Not while there are still people out there who want him dead." "Where would we go?" Ronan asked. He was sitting in a chair by the bed, his own wounds bandaged. "I don't know, somewhere remote. Somewhere we can fortify. Somewhere we can raise him until he's strong enough to defend himself." "He's 3 days old. Alpha children grow fast, you said so yourself." Elena stroked Kieran's soft hair. "In a few years, he'll be able to shift, to fight, to protect himself. But until then, we need to disappear." Ronan was quiet for a long time. Then, "There's a fortress in the northern mountains, ancient, built during the border wars. It's been abandoned for decades, but the bones are solid, defensible." "How far?" "A week's journey, maybe less if we push." "Then that's where we go." Elena looked up at him. "All of us. Together." The word hung between them again. Together. "The council will protest," Ronan warned. "The council can handle the kingdom. They've been doing it for centuries." Elena's voice was firm. Our priority is Kieran. Everything else comes second. When do we leave? As soon as I can walk without bleeding. It took 5 days. 5 days of healing, planning, and saying goodbye to a life that had never quite fit anyway. Elena stood in the throne room one last time, looking at the seat she'd fought so hard to reclaim. The Luna Queen's throne, smaller than the king's but no less powerful. Lady Vera approached, her cane tapping on the stone floor. "You're really going," the old woman said. "We have to." "I understand. Doesn't mean I like it." Vera settled onto a bench with a sigh. "You've been queen for less than a week. People will say you're running away. Let them say whatever they want. I'm protecting my son. That's all that matters." Spoken like a true mother. Vera smiled slightly. "And a true queen. The throne isn't a place, girl. It's what you carry with you." Elena touched the crown on her head, the Luna crown, returned to her after the council vote. She lifted it off and handed it to Vera. "Hold on to this for me. When Kieran is old enough, when it's safe, we'll come back. And I'll wear it again." "A promise?" "A threat." Elena smiled. "Anyone who tries to take what's mine while I'm gone, better pray I never return." Vera laughed, a sound like rustling paper. "I believe you. Now go. Your family is waiting." Elena found Ronan and Kieran in the courtyard. A small group was going with them. Kale, Marin, a handful of trusted guards. Enough to defend the fortress, not so many they'd draw attention. The journey north was hard, but uneventful. They traveled through forests and over mountains, always moving, never staying in one place long enough to be tracked. Kieran thrived. He was growing impossibly fast, his eyes bright and alert, already responding to his parents' voices. The bond between Elena and Ronan grew stronger with each passing day, fed by shared purpose and the love they both had for their son. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments, moments of tension when old wounds reopened, times when Elena woke from nightmares of being cast aside, and Ronan had to talk her down from running. But they were trying, both of them. And slowly, painfully, something new was being built. The fortress appeared on the 10th day, perched on a mountainside like an eagle's nest. It was exactly as Ronan had described. Ancient, crumbling, but solid. "Home," he said. Elena looked at the stone walls, at the sweeping view of mountains and valleys stretching endlessly. Remote, defensible, safe. "Home," she agreed. They spent the next weeks making the fortress livable, clearing rubble, repairing walls, setting up defenses. It was hard work, but good work, work that had purpose. Kieran celebrated his first month of life in a fortress that had stood for centuries, surrounded by people who would die to protect him. Elena sat on the battlements at sunset, watching her son play with wooden blocks Kael had carved. He was already sitting up on his own, babbling in a language only he understood. Ronan joined her, settling beside her on the stone. "Happy?" he asked. Elena considered the question. Was she happy, after everything that had happened, everything she'd lost and gained? "I'm alive," she said finally. "My son is alive. We're safe. That's more than I thought I'd have 3 months ago." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I've got." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the mountains gold and red. "The bond," Elena said quietly. "It's almost complete now. I can feel you all the time, your emotions, your thoughts almost." "I know, I feel it too. Does it scare you? Should it?" Elena thought about the power growing inside her, about what she'd become in the nursery, about the violence she was capable of. "Maybe." Ronan took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "I'm not scared of you, Elena. I'm in awe of you. You've survived everything the world threw at you and came out stronger. You're magnificent, terrifying, and absolutely the only person I want beside me." Elena looked at him, really looked at him, at this man who'd broken her heart and then helped her put the pieces back together, who'd delivered their son in a blizzard and jumped through windows to save him, who knelt before her in front of the whole kingdom and called her his queen. "I think I might be falling in love with you again," she admitted. "And I hate that, because you hurt me so badly and I swore I'd never forgive you." "You don't have to forgive me. You don't have to love me. Just let me stay. Let me prove I can be better." "How long?" "However long it takes." Elena leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the bond pulse between them like a heartbeat. One day at a time, then. One day at a time. Kieran made a happy sound, successfully stacking 3 blocks before knocking them over. He laughed, delighted by the destruction he'd caused. Elena smiled. He's going to be a handful. Wonder where he gets that from. Careful, or you're sleeping on the battlements tonight. Ronan laughed, and for the first time in forever it felt real, natural, like they might actually make it. 6 months later, scouts reported that the palace conspiracy had been fully rooted out. The kingdom was stable. The council was requesting the royal family's return. Elena stood in the great hall of the fortress, reading the letter. Kieran was on the floor, crawling at impossible speed, chasing a ball that Kyle kept rolling away from him. At 6 months old, he looked like a 1-year-old, talked in simple sentences, could shift parts of his body, just his hands so far, but Marin said full transformation would come soon. What do you think? Ronan asked. Elena watched her son, fierce and perfect, and growing stronger every day. She thought about the palace, about the throne, about the crown she'd left behind. I think, she said slowly, it's time to go home. Time to show them what we've become. We? All of us. Elena smiled. We're not the broken people who left. We're something new now, something stronger. The bond flared between them, fully formed, complete. Stronger than the first bond had ever been, forged in fire and blood and survival. When? Ronan asked. Spring, when the mountain pass is clear. Elena set the letter down. We'll return as a family, as equals. And we'll build something better than what was. Ronan crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. The kiss was gentle, asking permission, giving her the choice. Elena chose him, chose to try, chose to believe that broken things could be made whole again, even if they never looked quite the same. When they finally pulled apart, Kieran was staring at them, his small face serious. Mama, he said clearly. Papa, his first real words. Elena laughed, scooping him up. Yes, baby, Mama and Papa, we're all here. Home, Kieran said, looking around the fortress. Yes, this is home, for now. She looked at Ronan over their son's head. But soon we'll have another home, a bigger one, where you'll learn to be a king. King, Kieran repeated, testing the word. That's right, you're going to be a king, the best king the Northern Territories have ever seen. Elena pressed a kiss to his forehead. And your mother is going to make sure the world knows better than to ever underestimate you. Spring came with flowers and melting snow and the promise of new beginnings. The journey back to the palace took 2 weeks. Word of their return spread like wildfire. By the time they reached the outer territories, crowds had gathered to see them. The queen who'd risen from the dead, the king who'd learned humility, the heir who'd survived impossible odds. They rode into the palace courtyard on a bright morning in early spring. The damage from Lior's attack had been repaired. New banners flew from the towers. The High Council waited on the steps. Oren was gone, replaced by a younger man with kind eyes. Lady Vera stood at the center, leaning on her cane, smiling. Elena dismounted, lifting Kieran down. He stood on his own feet now, holding her hand, his eyes wide as he took in the palace. Welcome home, Your Majesty, Vera said. Elena looked at the throne room visible through the open doors. At the 2 thrones sitting side by side, king and queen, equal in power and authority. She thought about the woman who'd stood in the shadows 300 days ago, watching another woman steal her crown. That woman was gone, dead and buried in the snow. This woman, scarred, powerful, unbreakable, was who remained. Thank you, Elena said. It's good to be home. She walked up the steps with Ronan at her side and Kieran between them. The council bowed, the crowd cheered, and Elena Varelli, Luna Queen of the Northern Territories, mother of the true heir, survivor of betrayal and exile and impossible odds, reclaimed her throne. Not as a victim, not as someone who'd been saved, but as a force of nature who'd rewritten every rule, broken every expectation, and emerged from the storm stronger than anyone thought possible. The woman they'd tried to erase had become the woman who would never be forgotten, and her reign had only just begun. The coronation ceremony was set for the first full moon after their return. Elena stood in her chambers, staring at her reflection. The dress was new, deep midnight blue with silver thread woven through it, forming patterns that looked like constellations. It fit perfectly, hugging curves that had softened since Kieran's birth, then flowing to the floor in waves of fabric. She looked like a queen, felt like a warrior. "You're nervous," Ronan said from the doorway. "I'm terrified." Elena turned to face him. He wore formal armor, polished until it gleamed with the royal crest emblazoned across the chest. "What if I'm not ready? What if I fail them?" "You won't." "You don't know that." Ronan crossed the room, taking her hands. "I know you survived a blizzard birth, killed trained assassins while bleeding out, rebuilt a bond that was supposed to be impossible to repair. If you can do all that, you can handle a crown. That's different. That was survival. This is—" She gestured helplessly. "This is leading, making decisions that affect thousands of people. What if I make the wrong choice? Then you'll make another choice, and another, until you get it right." Ronan's thumb traced circles on her palm. "You're not doing this alone, Elena. We're partners now, equals. Your mistakes are my mistakes. Your victories are mine." A knock at the door interrupted them. Marin entered, carrying Kieran. The baby, not really a baby anymore, more like a toddler despite being barely 7 months old, was dressed in miniature formal wear that made him look absurdly serious. "Someone wants his mother," Marin said, handing him over. Kieran wrapped his arms around Elena's neck, burying his face against her shoulder. "Loud," he mumbled. "Too many people." "I know, sweetheart, but we have to do this. It's important." "Why?" Elena thought about how to explain monarchy to a 7-month-old with the vocabulary of a 3-year-old. Because the people need to know who's going to protect them, who's going to make sure they're safe and fed and treated fairly. "You," Kieran said simply. "You protect everyone." Something in Elena's chest cracked open. "I'm going to try." "You will." Kieran pulled back to look at her with those serious gold eyes. "You're the strongest. Out of the mouths of children." Elena kissed his forehead. "Thank you, baby. Now, are you ready to sit very still and be very quiet while Mama and Papa do boring grown-up things?" Kieran considered this. "Can I have cake after?" "So much cake." "Okay." The throne room had been transformed. Every noble family in the Northern Territories had sent representatives. The room was packed with wolves in their finest clothing, all waiting to see the coronation of the queen who'd defied death itself. Elena walked down the aisle with Kieran on one side and Ronan on the other. Every eye followed her, some with admiration, some with curiosity, a few with lingering suspicion. Let them watch, let them judge. She'd proven herself in blood and fire. If that wasn't enough, nothing would be. The new High Chancellor, a man named Garrett, with honest eyes and a reputation for fairness, stood before the twin thrones. In his hands, he held 2 crowns. The king's crown, which Ronan already wore, and the Luna crown, which had been waiting for Elena's return. "Kneel," Garrett said. Elena knelt, keeping one hand on Kieran's shoulder. The little boy stood perfectly still, understanding somehow that this moment mattered. "Elena Virelli," Garrett's voice rang through the chamber. "You have endured trials that would break most wolves. You have survived exile, betrayal, and attempts on your life. You have given birth to the heir under impossible circumstances. You have defended this kingdom and its people with your blood and your strength. Do you swear to continue this service? To lead with wisdom and protect with ferocity? To put the good of the many above the comfort of the few?" "I swear it," Elena said clearly. "Do you swear to rule alongside your mate as equal, to counsel and be counseled, to share power and responsibility without pride or prejudice?" "I swear it." "Then by the authority vested in me by the High Council and the will of the Northern Territories, I crown you Luna Queen. May your reign be long and your justice swift." The crown settled onto her head. It was heavier than she remembered, colder, but it fit. Elena stood. The room erupted in cheers. Ronan took her hand, pulling her toward him. The kiss was brief, appropriate for public viewing, but the bond flared between them, warm and electric. "My queen," he murmured. "My king," she replied. Kieran tugged on her dress. Cake now? The room burst into laughter. Even the sternest nobles couldn't help but smile at the heir's single-minded focus. Yes, Elena said, lifting him into her arms. Cake now. The feast lasted hours. Elena moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations, fielding questions, making small talk with nobles she'd once considered friends, and others she'd never trusted. Lady Vera pulled her aside at one point, her weathered face thoughtful. You've changed, the old woman said, grown harder, sharper. I had to. I know, but don't lose the softness entirely. A queen needs both. Vera glanced at Kieran, who was systematically demolishing a piece of cake 3 times the size of his head. He'll need to see both sides of you, the warrior and the mother, the judge and the nurturer. I'll try. That's all any of us can do. Vera patted her arm. You're going to be magnificent. Terrifying, certainly, but magnificent. As the night wore on, Elena found herself standing on a balcony, looking out over the kingdom. Lights twinkled in the distance, homes, taverns, lives being lived in relative peace. This was what she'd fought for, what she'd nearly died for. The chance to make this place better, safer, more just. Ronan joined her, sliding an arm around her waist. Kieran's asleep, passed out in a pile of frosting. Kale's watching him. He earned it, sat still for almost 20 minutes. Elena leaned into Ronan's warmth. That's a record. Takes after his mother, stubborn as hell. Watch it, or you're sleeping in the stables. Ronan laughed, pressing a kiss to her temple. I love you, and in case I haven't said it enough. Elena turned to face him. The bond between them hummed, complete and unbreakable. She could feel his sincerity, his devotion, his regret for the past and hope for the future. I love you too, she said. Even though you're an idiot who believed a scheming liar over your own mate. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for that. Good. It's going to take at least that long. They stood together in the moonlight, king and queen, mates and partners, watching over a kingdom that had tried to destroy them and failed. Elena touched the crown on her head, feeling its weight, its responsibility. She'd been cast aside as worthless, hunted as inconvenient, targeted for death. And she'd survived it all. More than survived. She'd conquered, had taken every attempt to break her and used it to forge herself into something unbreakable. The world had tried to erase Elena Virelli. Instead, she'd rewritten everything. And this kingdom, this crown, this family, was only the beginning.